Good morning, councillors, staff, invited guests, members joining us in the gallery and media, and welcome to our General Council meeting of 24th of February 2021. And it's wonderful to have you all with us here today, and let's hope we have an enjoyable meeting and get some important decisions made for the benefit of the people of our region. I now call the meeting open at 9 a.m. and we don't have any apologies, and there are no leaves of absence to grant. I'll now call on Pastor Glenn Vonhoff, a dear friend of mine, to come forward and deliver the opening prayers. Thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you, Mayor Brett Otto, councillors, council staff visitors. Good to be here again representing the Baramba Men's Association, which covers Mergen, Gameri, Cherbourg, Wanda and Proston areas. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago I asked Ada Simpson at Cherbourg, what does Baramba mean? And she said it means big wind. And I said, was it named that after the Aboriginal Women's Conference last year? She's chastised me for saying that. But I'm Glenn Vonhoff from the Mergen Church of Christ at Mergen. I was reading a statement by clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson. He goes around the world giving lectures and addressing conferences, etc. And he wrote a best-selling book called The 12 Rules of Life, An Antidote to Chaos. And in it he makes this statement: if your life is not what it could be, try telling the truth. If you cling desperately to an ideology or wallow in nihilism, try telling the truth. If you feel weak and rejected and desperate and confused, try telling the truth. In paradise, everyone speaks the truth. That is what makes it paradise. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. This man's not a Christian, or nor does he belong to any religion or sect or particular group of people with certain beliefs. This was his observation purely as a psychologist. He discovered that people who had anxiety, depression, problems, mental problems and physical problems were often liars. And if they stopped lying and told the truth, it fixed them. That's what he found. So whether you're an atheist or agnostic, Christian or some other religion or belief, whoever you are, I'm sure that we all agree that telling the truth is a paramount parameter for all of us in our personal public lives. Therefore, though taken from the Bible, God's words are equally applicable to every one of us. In 2 Timothy 2:15, God says this: do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. We don't like to be lied to by our family, or a husband, wife, or child, or etc. We despise friends who lie to us, and probably, most of all, we detest politicians who lie to us. Today, as members of the South Bend Regional Council, I want to challenge you to be truthful, both to yourself and to the public. I, along with my wife, personally ran our own business most of my life. During that time, I served in the public arena on various committees, etc., etc. And I know of the opportunities and temptations which come your way. Sometimes it is easier to do a deal than to remain true to your commitment to serve those who you represent. But if you stick to the truth, it will set you free from those things which cause you anxiety, depression, unhappiness and grief. As Jordan Peterson says, try telling the truth. Let us pray. Lord Jesus, you were born in a little town. You grew up under the authority of local leaders and officials who managed the majority of your daily life. We lift up our local leaders here today. We pray for our Mayor, our South Bend Regional Councillors, and all who serve our local communities. Strengthen them with wisdom and grace for the heavy burdens they carry. May they manage their teams and projects with love and integrity. Keep their hearts pure and their eyes turned toward your face as they work in the best interest of the people they are called to serve. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Saviour. Amen. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Glenn, and very appropriate words for this chamber in terms of the work that we do. Telling the truth, obviously, is an important part of good governance and serving the people of the region who rely on us to do so. Glenn, we know you're a busy person, but you're certainly quite welcome to stay for a period of time if you'd like to do so, but we'll understand if you do have to leave. And can I say once again, thank you and God bless. Trust you have a blessed day. Thank you, Glenn. We'll now move on to item 4, which is the recognition of our traditional owners, and I'll call on Councillor Duff as the Indigenous Affairs portfolio holder to deliver such. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mayor Otto. I would like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, now we have in our presence Mr Graham Wilson. Good morning, Graham, and welcome to Chamber. And it's our pleasure now to welcome you, invite you up to the lectern to deliver your deputation. Thank you, Graham.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Council. Thank you for allowing me to address the meeting. I'm here to ask Council to favourably consider progressing water infrastructure that it has planned and was partly included in its 2019 LGIP plan. This infrastructure is for providing high-level water flow to various parts of the southeast part of Kingaroy that hasn't got high flow, and for further water storage capacity via a reservoir which would enable Swickers to increase production and jobs safely. While preparing mine and Dawn McLaren's development application for our development blocks in Clark and Swenson Road, which was approved in April 2019, our engineer investigated the potential of our lot sourcing water from this proposed council infrastructure, even though we have access to water via Valley Street. The trunk main for council's water infrastructure was to come from Haley Street along the western and southern boundaries of our development, across Clark and Swenson Road to a high-level reservoir to the east, making eminent sense that we should be working together on this to achieve efficiencies for all parties. If we source our water via Valley Street, our infrastructure could be obsolete in a couple of years if the council infrastructure goes ahead. Council now has the opportunity to put in water infrastructure in a greenfield site, even in stages, with contributions from other sources, rather than down the track when they have to negotiate access through developed land and infrastructure. The report presented to the Infrastructure Committee, the Standing Infrastructure Committee, on February the 3rd outlines 2 main points: that any infrastructure cannot be done in stages due to water ageing problems, as the trunk main is not circulating. Council's water engineer and my engineer have had discussions about solutions to this issue, excuse me, and they have 4 solutions to this issue, which upon reflection wasn't such a big issue. I would ask Council that we be allowed to present these points in the report to the Standing Infrastructure Committee in March. The other issue, of course, is funding. It's a big lot of money to budget. About $8.5 million to fund this particular infrastructure, and there would be plenty of reticence by Council to entertain that level of funding. However, it can be done in stages, and funding sources such as Building Better Regions, which Council is well acquainted with, can be applied for, even in stages, thus halving costs. Also, contributions from beneficiaries of the infrastructure would also reduce costs. It can be done, and soon. Now is the time to strike on big projects while you can lock in near zero interest for years and the feds are wanting to stimulate growth with investment grants. Again, the benefits of this infrastructure are it will provide high-level flow and capacity to a large area of Kingaroy that hasn't got it, which was its main purpose. It will provide increased water security for Swickers, enabling increased production and jobs. And it will encourage further housing development to the south of our blocks, increasing the rates flow to council. It will be a large job creator in itself and from on-flow development. There are numerous efficiencies and savings by commencing it now, even in stages. If not started now, it may never happen. Again, for our development, we can get water already approved. It is the benefits and efficiencies that council could achieve by delivering or starting this water infrastructure, and that is the thing. We need to know which way it is heading so we can begin our development. I would ask that council work with ourselves and other stakeholders to have input into the report to be delivered to the Infrastructure Standing Committee in March for a decision. And council, if there is a will, there is a way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham, and that was certainly well articulated. And sorry, our CEO will take that request on board and be in touch promptly. Thank you, Graham. And Graham, you're most welcome to stay on and join us for the proceedings of the meeting, but we'll fully understand if you need to leave and go about your business. But thank you once again. Great to have you with us. Thank you, Graham. Councillors, we'll now move on to, we'll come back to the item 5, declarations of interest. Councillors, you have the agenda in front of you. Does any councillor wish to provide a statement in relation to declaration of interest in relation to any matter on the agenda today? Councillor Potter.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I, Councillor Danita Potter, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 18.1, alleged inappropriate councillor conduct complaint, investigation and recommendation. The nature of my declarable conflict of interest is as follows. The complainant in relation to the investigation, the subject of this item of business, is a participant in a petition to the Minister for Local Government for an investigation into and dismissal of myself, Councillor Jones, Froloff and Henshin. The contents of the petition are now with the Office of the Independent Assessor for consideration. Given these actions of the complainant, it may be perceived that I might have a conflict between my personal interests and the public interest that could inappropriately influence the way I might vote on this matter. Having regard to the nature of my declarable conflict of interest, I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while the matter is discussed and voted on. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. That'll be taken and noted in the minutes, and we will, in accordance with your declaration, have you leave and stay away from the meeting while item 18.1 is being addressed by council. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I, Councillor Shoemaker, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 9.6, adoption of South Burnett Regional Council Procurement Policy, Statutory 007. The nature of my interest is as followed. This declarable conflict of interest arises because my husband's business, Shuey Brothers Drilling, has conducted works for council and is registered on the Felix system. I propose to leave the meeting and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. I, Councillor Shoemaker, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 14.5, use of a reserve land, Bunya Mountains. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises due to owning a freehold property on the Bunya Mountains, and I'm a member of the Bunya Mountains Community Association. I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. I, Councillor Shoemaker, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to 18.5, the SB Care proposal. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises as I have previously worked for Stanwell and gave advice to the Toorong Community Partnership Fund to allocate funds to SBCare, and I propose to leave and stay away from the meeting where the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. That'll be duly noted. Of course, we'll see you leave the meeting and stay away while items 9.6, 14.5 and 18.5 are being dealt with by Council. Thank you very much. Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of declarations as well. I, Councillor Gavin Jones, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 18.1, alleged inappropriate councillor conduct complaint investigation and recommendation. The nature of my declarable conflict of interest is as follows. The complainant in relation to the investigation, the subject of this item of business, is a participant in a petition to the Minister for Local Government for an investigation into and the dismissal of myself and Councillors Potter, Fryloff and Henson. The contents of the petition are now at the Office of the Independent Assessor for consideration. Given these actions of the complainant, it may be perceived that I might have a conflict between my personal interests and the public interest that could inappropriately influence the way I might vote on this matter. Having regard to the nature of my declarable conflict of interest, I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. And I also have a conflict in 18.5. I, Councillor Gavin Jones, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 18.5 SBCare proposal. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises as I am on the board of the Tarong Community Partnership Fund and have allocated grant funds to SBCare. I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed on and voted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. That will be duly noted in the minutes, and we will see you leave the meeting and stay away while items 18.1 and 18.5 are addressed by Council. Other councillors? Councillor Fryloff.
Thank you, Mayor. I, Councillor Fryloff, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 18.1, alleged inappropriate councillor conduct, complaint, investigation and recommendation. The nature of my declarable conflict of interest is as follows. The complainant in relation to the investigation, the subject of this item of business, is a participant in a petition to the Minister for Local Government for an investigation into and dismissal of myself and the Councillor Jones, Potter and Henson. The contents of this petition are now with the Officer of the Independent Assessor for consideration. Given those actions of the complainant, I may be perceived that I might have a conflict between my personal interest and the public interest that could inappropriately influence the way I might vote on this matter. Having regard to the nature of my declarable conflict of interest, I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is being discussed and voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Fryloff. It'll be duly noted in the minutes, and we'll see you leave the meeting and stay away while item 18.1 is being attended to by Council. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, Councillor Scott Henson, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 18.1, alleged inappropriate councillor conduct, complaint, investigation and recommendation. The nature of my declarable conflict of interest is that I am the councillor of the subject of investigation. Having regard to the nature of my declarable conflict of interest, I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. That will be duly noted in the minutes, and we'll see you leave the meeting and stay away while item 18.1 is addressed by Council. Councillor Duff, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, Councillor Kathy Duff, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 18.1, alleged inappropriate councillor conduct, complaint, investigation and recommendation. The nature of my declarable conflict of interest is as follows. The complainant in relation to the investigation has previously lodged a complaint against me to the Office of the Independent Assessor about my conduct as a councillor. Given these actions of the complainant, it may be perceived that I might have a conflict between my personal interests and the public interest that could inappropriately influence the way I might vote on this matter. Having regard to the nature of my declarable conflict of interest, I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Your conflict of interest is duly noted. Will be done so in the minutes, and we will see you leave the meeting and stay away until such time as item 18.1 is attended to. Okay, now I'd also like to make a statement in relation to such. I, Mayor Brett Otto, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 18.1, alleged inappropriate councillor conduct, complaint investigation and recommendation. The nature of my declarable conflict of interest is as follows. The complainant in relation to the investigation has previously lodged a complaint against me to the Office of the Independent Assessor about my conduct as a councillor. Given these actions of the complainant, it may be perceived that I might have a conflict between my personal interests and the public interest that could inappropriately influence the way I might vote on this matter. Having regard to the nature of my declarable conflict of interest, I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. If that could please be duly noted in the minutes, and I will ensure that I do leave and stay away while that matter is attended to by council. Right, councillors, any other declarations in relation to conflict of interest? If not, Mr. CEO, anything further to add on that item? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Regrettably, the department hasn't formally replied to our request from last meeting, so we've had no formal response to our correspondence. So we're left in a position where we need to go through this process again. We've had an email exchange and telephone conversations between the department, but there has been no formal response. So what we would recommend is all councillors may stay in the room in accordance to the Act as we deal with this matter procedurally. And Lynelle, we got the resolution, please? So that we will resubmit to the department the recommendation or resolution that the Minister, well, the resolution is that Council notes the 6 out of 7 councillors have informed the meeting of a declarable conflict of interest in the matter. Council notes that those declaring councillors have stated that if discussion and decision on the matter proceeds, they will leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. That as a consequence of the Mayor and the majority of the councillors comprising each council's 3 standing committees declaring a declarable conflict of interest in relation to this matter, Council notes that pursuant to Section 150 EU3 of the Local Government Act 2009, Council is unable to delegate the deciding this matter under Section 257(2) of the Local Government Act 2009. That pursuant to the Section 150 EU2B of the Local Government Act, Council deferred this matter to a later meeting. That the CEO make application to the Minister on behalf of Councillors Otto, Jones, Froloff, Potter and Duff seeking ministerial approvals pursuant to Section 150 EV of the Local Government Act 2009 for those councillors to participate in deciding this matter, including being present while the matter is discussed and voted on. That would need to be moved and seconded, please.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Shoemaker?
I'll move that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Froloff? Thank you. Of the councillors, 6 councillors?
Yep.
Those in favour?
7.
7 councillors. Passed unanimously. It's carried.
That matter is now dealt with, and we will go back to the department, and one would hope their response is more timely this month.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, and thank you for the significant amount of work and resources you've committed to this process over a period of time. And as you've indicated, let's hope that we get a timely response from the department so that the matter can be appropriately attended to. Okay, councillors, let's move on now to item 6. To petitions as such, item 6 on the agenda, and 6.1 at 6 is a petition calling on council to rescind the decision from the meeting of 25 November 2020 to commit a further $2.8 million to the Kingaroy CBD Transformation Project. And the recommendation is that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer to determine appropriate action. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jones. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all.
Mr Mayor, just for the information of the meeting, the report will come back to the next Infrastructure Standing Committee. So there'll be a report on both petitions will come back to the March standing committees.
Thank you, Mr CEO. 6.2 is another petition, can be found at 7, forwarding petition in relation to the Flying Fox problem in Hart Street, Blackbutt. The recommendation is that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer to determine appropriate action. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jones. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillors, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. And as Mr CEO has articulated, those matters will now be brought back to the relevant standing committee meeting for further discussion. Councillors, let's go to item 8, which is the minutes of the previous council meeting held on the 20th of January 2021. They can be found at 8, and I would hereby move that the minutes of the council meeting held on 20 January 2021 be received and the recommendations therein be adopted. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillors wishing to raise any issues in relation to the minutes, questions, concerns, business arising? No? Okay. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Right, councillors, let's now move on to the next item on the agenda, getting into the business of council. The first item at 9.1 are the meeting dates for the ordinary meetings of council, standing committee meetings and general meetings can be found at 30. Mr CEO, I might hand over to you. Oh, sorry, have I skipped one again? Oh, goodness, there you go. Now, and Barry Cross is in the audience, and great to have you here again, Barry. I know you've been doing this for 20 years, and I think in my 10 months you've probably never seen a mayor that likes to skip through the agenda and often miss items. So it's not because I want to fast-track the meeting, so my apologies for the oversight. It's always invaluable to have the CEO sitting next to you for very good reason. So we've got item 8.1, my apologies, at 23. Business outstanding table for ordinary council meeting. As I said, that can be found at 23. Mr CEO, can you give us an introduction on that? Thank you.
It's literally just an information report on the resolutions that are not yet been completed.
Thank you, Mr CEO. So councillors, there's just opportunity for council to address that. So we would normally receive that for information, and then we can go to a discussion on the matter. So I would hereby move that the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Sorry, a mover. A seconder, Councillor Potter. Thank you. I'll get into my groove soon enough. Seconded by Councillor Potter. Councillors, any issues to raise in relation to the table of outstanding resolutions? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge there's the Building Better Regions Fund Round 5. I know we've got some very ambitious projects there, and I just wanted to acknowledge GM Omay for all of the work you've done behind the scenes. And I know the broader set, there's been a mammoth amount of work done in this past month. The applications are due on the 5th of March, and I've been impressed by the team's work and effort in terms of meeting that deadline. And I just wanted to say an enormous thank you, because I know how much pressure that's put everyone under, and I think the team has excelled. And I'd like to acknowledge that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillors, if I could just add, we do have one item that is outstanding on our list. It relates to the Yallakul Tourist Park Water Playground, BBRF application. I'd just like to provide some information around that. So we'll need to make a decision to withdraw the Building Better Regions Fund submission for Yallakul Tourist Park Water Playground. The initial planning had identified potential limitations on the existing water supply and sewerage infrastructure that may not adequately support the operation of a water playground at the proposed location, particularly in peak use periods. Council needs to ensure the operation of the proposed water park facility does not place undue pressure that may jeopardise the current operation of the park's other facilities. Council is obligated to the community and the Australian Government to ensure this project is technically feasible before lodgement of the application to the Building Better Region funding. The timeline for the lodgement of the project application under round 5 of BBRF does not allow sufficient time to undertake further feasibility investigations. Therefore, Council has made the difficult decision to hold over the proposal for future rounds of BBRF to allow a more thorough feasibility assessment to be undertaken. So for those in the gallery, for the community who are watching, we would, unfortunately will have to withdraw that application because, as we know, we were giving a very short time frame with round 5. We need to have applications in by the 5th of March. The infrastructure required to support the water park, now that we've done further investigations, it has been revealed that that infrastructure that we currently have is unlikely to be adequate to support the water park. And as such, with the time that we've got available, it would be somewhat pointless to lodge an application for funding where we can't be shovel ready to progress should it be successful. So, Mr. CEO, do we need to take any further action other than bring that to your attention at this
Not
stage?
today, Mr. Mayor. There will be a wrap-up report on all the projects and we'll deal with it then. What it will mean is that the project won't be submitted by the due date and therefore won't be considered by the Commonwealth. But we will bring a report back after the applications are in to advise we've got them in and what the next steps may be. So it can be dealt with at that point.
Thank you, Mr. So. If I could just further add that we were endeavouring to get an application in. We're very fortunate now, our region, to have 3 federal members, 3 federal electorates, and we were hoping to get an application in under the Honourable Lou O'Brien's electorate, which is the Mergen end of the region. But with this one now not being in a position to progress, we won't be able to do so. There is another project that I know the community are keen to see, which involves toilet facilities and also a half basketball court, which the Parks and Gardens manager has previously scoped and designed, so that work is quite well advanced. However, Councillor Duff, in considering that, it may look as though we're not in a position to progress that in this round with the short time frame that we've got, but that could be put for consideration of Council in coming weeks with an endeavour to progress that, if Council feels appropriate, for the next round of BBRF, which we believe we're hoping will come out late May. So if Council's happy with that, we can go through that process. Councillor Duff, did you want to add anything to that? Are you comfortable with that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm disappointed about the water park, but we were very pushed with all of these projects. I'm really excited about the work that's been done with Coolabunnya Sale Yards. I'm absolutely wanted to hats off to the staff because we've really put them under the pump with the sale yards and also the Wandai swimming pool project. I think they're both exciting projects. It is disappointing that we haven't got one for Lou O'Brien's area because I think that we would have been a fairly strong chance of getting something because all those members are trying to tick some boxes with the upcoming federal election. But I'm also keen to see, as Mayor Otto said about there's a plan for the skate park in Mergen, which is to get a half court for the kids, and I think that would be a great project as we move forward, and also a toilet there at the skate park because there's a barbecue there and a whole heap of infrastructure and no amenities, so that would be a great project to put forward as well. Yeah, so I'm disappointed, and I'm sure the community is disappointed, but I was really excited about something a bit special for that BPDM, but we have to, look at the infrastructure and the ongoing costs, but certainly something we can look at further down the track. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Duff, and I think Council has made a sensible decision here not to proceed on the basis that we just clearly, after further investigations that only happened in recent weeks, we've identified that we just don't have the infrastructure there to put the water park in. So it's not off the agenda. It can still stay on there. And as Councillor Shoemaker has previously articulated, Council will be developing a pipeline of projects for our region under our regional development strategy as part of our asset management program. So we'll see these sorts of proposals still come forward and stay on the agenda for coming future funding rounds. Councillor Froloff, did you want to add anything to that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to have it noted for the Better Building, Building Better Regions Fund, the four subjects that went up, that Councillor Henson and I voted against them. We did not vote it. I just wanted to note to the public that we did not vote against the four of them. I just wanted to vote down the BP Dam Park because we don't have the water at the moment and we don't have the infrastructure to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Councillor Froloff, for the chamber and also for the gallery and for those watching online. Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Shoemaker's comments before. The work behind the scenes that the staff, our general managers have done on this project is nothing short of incredible, because to have this proposal for the BBRF funding by the 5th of March has seriously put people under the pump and behind the 8 ball would be an understatement. The other thing, just please everybody note that, you know, these have got to be approved. So the protocol to be able to get these through, there's 4 stages in it. There's 15 points for 2 and 5 for the other, and we've got to get 60% in all of those. And that's a tough ask, and the guys behind the scenes are working very, very hard to get these things across the board. So I'd just like that noted that, yeah, even though the BP, and correct as Councillor Froloff said, you know, it's not off the table. We've got work to do with infrastructure down at BP Dam, and who knows, in the future. We've got a wonderful thing happening with the Wandoi swimming pool. We can focus on that and the Coolabunnya sale yards. So let's hope we can tick those boxes in the BBRF funding's criteria. So, yeah, well done to all the guys behind the scene and girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. When said, there certainly has been a lot of work go into this. Coolabunnya sale yards, the Wandoi pool, we're very hopeful that we will get those 2 projects up. They're very important projects, and Councillor Henson, I know you've been a driving force on both of those. You've supported both of those projects, including the Wandoi pool, from day one. I think you made that very clear at the last meeting. So well done. Disappointed that we can't go ahead with the water park, but it is what it is. The infrastructure is not ready, as we've now found out. So we'll put 110% into getting great applications in for the sale yards and for the Wandoi pool, and then we'll leave it with the federal government to make a decision. No doubt it'll be a very competitive round, but we'll look forward to that. But I'd like to acknowledge the work the councillors have been doing with the staff and with the community over the last month in really fast-tracking these applications. They are a significant application. They're not a one-page form. There's a lot of design work goes in. There's a lot of detail has to be put in, particularly around the economic and social benefits. A lot of data, a lot of facts have to be reported to get these things up, to meet the criteria. And there has been a lot of work, as other councillors have shared, going in by councillors, community, and very much the staff. So thank you all. We look forward to seeing those applications in by the 5th of March. Right, Mr CEO, so where are we up to? We've got that at table, so we'll go to the vote on that, that be received for information. Yep, those in favour. Councillor, yep, sorry, put your hand up, Kirsty. I was going to go to you. Okay, back to the start. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr CEO. We've just got a matter, business arising from the previous minutes, and I'd like to put forward a motion off the floor in relation to such, the motion is in relation to Carew Park. And the motion is that we enter into a lease agreement with the Bunya Valley Landcare Group to manage Carew Park, and that a lease with conditions be brought to the next Community Standing Committee meeting to progress this process. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Jones, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. This issue with Carew Park has been going on for a long period of time, and I fully support that we give these people an opportunity to do what they want to do out there. And obviously, you've mentioned that there'll be conditions and all that sort of stuff on it. So these people are pretty passionate out there, and they've made their case well known to council. And look, I fully support that we give these people, or this group, a great opportunity, a full opportunity to see where they go, and council will play a support role only in that. And by all indications that this group is going to lead lead the race to do all the work, and we may be able to support them in some way, shape or form, but the conditions will certainly outline that, so fully supportive of that.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Other councillors? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to back up what Councillor Jones has said. I've met with the committee and Councillor Potter and Councillor Duff and yourself, Mr Mayor, on a number of occasions. This is a really exciting project and it's a great opportunity for our community to be a part of improving one of our parks here in Kingaroy. I just can't thank the group, the Bunya Valley Land Care Group, enough for hanging in there and the work they've done with their planning. It's absolutely fabulous. I'd also like to acknowledge Justin Crick from the planning team, who's been doing some great work behind the scenes in helping them shape up the application, so their plans. So I'm really excited about where this could take us and looking forward to any working bees and things they may hold. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Shoemaker. We had some entertaining music there in the background from someone's telephone. That's the modern era. Okay, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Very well said. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd like to also agree with this recommendation. I'm really excited about what this group are proposing to achieve. They're talking about creating a park with long-term water efficiencies and plants that we won't have to maintain into the future, and it's an experimental project, and I'm really keen to see the outcome, because I know we're in drought conditions most of the time, and so it'd be great if we could get some parks that we had some drought tolerant plants, and I just think it's great to support this group, and keen to see this happen. I know that they've been waiting for probably the best part of 2 years, I think, to get something onto the table. So I think it's an exciting time for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. And of course, for the information, the community, Karoo Park is a piece of land that is on the corner of Tesmans Road and Doonkerna Street in Kingaroy. And we have a community group, Burnett Valley Land Care, who'd like to take that piece of land under a lease with council and develop it into a community-friendly, drought-friendly, water-efficient parkland. So it's nice to see community stepping up and putting that forward. Councillor Potter.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was actually chatting to a member of the Carew family yesterday, and I told her that this was possibly going to the March meeting. She was very excited. So you wait till I ring her up this afternoon and let her know that it's already gone through this meeting. But she her relatives keep asking her what's happening with the park, and she did not want to even send them a letter to let them know. So this is something very exciting for the Carew family as well. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a lovely story. Thank you very much, Councillor Potter. Councillor Henson.
Yeah, Dunedin, Councillor Potter beat me to it. I actually had a conversation last week with one of the Carew family members, an elderly gentleman, and it will be great to go back to them and be able to pass on that this is a pretty exciting thing for not just the park and the community, but to the Carew family. So that's wonderful.
Thanks very much, Councillor Henson. Okay, councillors, we have the matter in front of us. Go to the vote. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all.
So, Mayor Otto, I have another motion that's relevant to the last standing committee.
Yes, please proceed, Councillor Duff.
This is one that I'm just trying to fast track it because there's a bit of community angst about what's happening with those bikes, and we've got quite a few events, including what's the one? Ride the Trail. So I'm just wanting to move that council undertake an expression of interest process to offer council surplus exercise bikes to interested not-for-profit community groups to allow such groups to provide and manage a bike hire service to the wider community.
Right, thanks to Councillor Duff. So you're moving that off the floor. Can we just clarify that, Linnell? Have we got that? We'll just check that. Little bit of technical work to do here to get that up on the screen. We'll get the motion on screen so that all councillors are aware of what that is before we seek a seconder. We'll pop that in there. While we're doing that, Councillor Duff, I'll just confirm council has some old push bikes that can be used to ride on the rail trail or other places where it's safe to do so. and they've been in storage for some time. So the motion is addressing that. Just while we're doing that, Councillor Duff, do you know how many of these bikes that we have, just for clarity of the motion?
I believe there's 15.
15 bikes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Councillor Duff's motion is there. Council will undertake an expressive interest process to offer council's surplus exercise bikes to interested not-for-profit community groups to allow such groups to provide and manage a bike hire service to the wider community. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, now we'll move on, councillors, to item 9.1 at 30, which are the meeting dates for the ordinary meetings of council's standing committees and general meetings. I might hand over to you, Mr. CEO, just to lead us into this one. Thank you.
Sorry, certainly, Mr. Mayor. I'm just bringing it up. Council has, in accordance with the Act, needs to set its dates of meetings. So given the standing committees are running along not too bad now, and we've got that process in place, there'll be some other policy updates to align standing committee, which will come forward at future meetings. But the next set of meetings, including the special meeting for the budget, is put forward for April through to 30 June.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So we have the recommendation there. Councillors have the dates for those proposed meetings. And the recommendation is that Council adopt the dates, times and locations for the ordinary meetings of Council's standing committees and general meetings as follows. Do we have a mover? Thank you very much. Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.2 at 32 is the assignment of councillor portfolio representation. So we had a presentation to the Executive and Community Standing Committee meeting on the 17th of February in relation to the assignment of councillor portfolio representation and the change of portfolio name. And the committee recommended to council that South Burnett Regional Council adopts the assignments of specific portfolios as regional development, encompassing industry, agriculture, water security, economic development and tourism, to Councillor Kirsty Shoemaker, and amends any council policy or procedure on an administrative basis to reflect the name change. I would hereby move such. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.3 is at 34. That's the Webrock delegate, the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Organisation of Councils. Mr. CEO, could I get you to lead us in on this one as well? Just a bit of background, if you could, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The report came up from the last standing committee, which would be if the mayor was unable to attend. Normally sends a proxy, but there was some discussion about whether the mayor would be attending or not into the future. The committee recommended to council that should the mayor not attend, that the two delegates be the mayor, the deputy mayor and Councillor Schumacher. Should council resolve that the status quo remains, well, then there would be a slight changing to the wording, so the decision needs to be made today as to the delegate.
In light of such, Mr. CEO, I probably would like to see that we could change that wording if we can, that the delegates to the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Organisation of Councils remain as previously resolved. Being Mayor Brett Otto and Deputy Mayor Gavin Jones. That the delegates to the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Councils remain as previously resolved, comma, being Mayor, yes, and Deputy. Just a little bit of background on the motion. Councillors, there's quite a bit going on in terms of building networks across southern Queensland between our council at the moment. We have certainly a strong commitment to WebRock over the course of the next 12 months. That was made after that recommendation had come forward at the previous standing committee meeting. So as part of that commitment to WebRock that happened on the 12th of February, the chair has reached out to myself and expressed a strong desire to see the mayors at the table, and as such I provide a commitment to Chair Chambers of WebRock that myself and Deputy Mayor Jones would continue to do everything we could to be actively involved in WebRock, to give it absolutely every ounce of support and chance of success that we can over the course of the next 12 months. So I'll now move that motion. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillors, we'll go to 9.4, which is the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly. We've got a call for motions for 2021 at 35. Mr. CEO.
Mr. Mayor, the Standing Committee considered the topics. I've had a very rudimentary go at turning those topics into resolutions, so please, any councillor, feel free to play with the words. So the recommendation, South Bennett Regional Council submits the following resolutions to the National General Assembly of Local Government. The draft ones are listed A to D in the background based on the topics that we were given at the Standing Committee. So we'll let Lynelle bring them up. There's the federal assistance grants being brought back to 1%, ABC transmission for black spot sites to ensure coverage for all communities in natural disaster. So we do have gaps in ABC transmission in the area. This region's caught between Wide Bay and southern Queensland, so it would be good to improve the signal strength across the region. National Assembly calls on federal government to support renewable energy projects through a consistent national energy policy. Again, very happy to have that refined. National Assembly, federal government to support regional investment into health through programs such as the SME Fund, leveraging the unrealised capital potential of special investment visa programs. We understand, and this would be a discussion at Commonwealth level, that there are programs out there where they can invest into regional healthcare, and that would be a really good thing to see money, if it's coming into the country, be invested in particularly not-for-profit community hospitals, given that we have one.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillors, we have that recommendation there that the South Bennett Regional Council submits the following resolutions to the National General Assembly of Local Government. We have items A to D. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillors wishing to speak for or against, wanting to delete, add. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just with item number C, you all know I'm really passionate about this for our region. I just was wondering, could we amend that to read that this National Assembly calls on the state and federal government? It's going to Canberra. It calls on the federal government to consider a consistent national energy policy approach and guidelines that ensure responsible investment in renewable energy projects.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. We'll just might get you just to go through that again so we can get that right in the minutes. So if Lynelle, you're ready. Thanks, Kirsty. We'll just get you to run over that again. Thank you.
And guidelines that ensure, or legislation maybe, that ensures responsible investment in renewable energy projects.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. You're happy with that as it now reads?
Yes, thank you.
There, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Potter, are you happy with the change as the mover? Thank you. Councillor Jones, you comfortable with such? Okay. Councillors wishing to speak for or against the motion as it reads? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 9.5 can be found at 37. Adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Customer Service Charter, Strategic 008. And of course, a significant body of work has gone into getting us to this point where we now have the Customer Service Charter at hand today. And I would like to first of all congratulate Mr CEO, you and your team, and also the councillors who've made a significant effort to contribute to this, and notably Councillor Shoemaker, thank you for your work. I know that you're very passionate about this customer service agenda of council. So this matter has been considered at the Executive Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting last week on the 17th of February, and it was recommended that the South Burnett Regional Council Customer Service Charter Strategic 008 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As you rightly said, I'm very passionate about this, and certainly from taking the initial phone call to remediating and resolving the concern or complaint that's issued. I just think the work that's gone into this from the staff's point of view in terms of the entire review of the system from beginning to end is really important. And if it's okay through you, I'd like to ask GM Susan just to give us a bit of an update as to that project and what we can expect to see into the future.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate your kind words, and I'll certainly extend them to my staff. Manager Carolyn in particular did a lot of this work, and I'd like to congratulate her on the outcome of the report. The staff, I think the council staff are quite excited to have some guidelines now. Our last customer charter was adopted in 2009, so it's quite antiquated. So we're bringing this, we're looking for efficiencies as far as service into our council, and I think this policy reflects the path ahead of what we're planning to do. So part of the review, this will be in collaboration with our business systems project, the T2, where we're going to pull apart all of our business systems, the way we communicate internally, and the way we communicate externally. So this is part of a bigger picture. It's a work in progress, it's a living document, but I think that we're on the right path to, we're a service industry, and we certainly take that on board. So I think this is the first step in a great direction to service not only our consumers or our ratepayers, but also internally with communications. So, and I appreciate all the input from the councillors, especially you, Councillor Shoemaker, and it's set the bar now, and I'm certainly looking forward and the staff achieving that, and you know, having a reputation for excellence in service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Manager. And I've got a bit of a sore left foot, but nonetheless, I'm going to stand and speak in relation to this matter. I do that from time to time, and I guess that's one of the things that the Chair gets to do because it is a very important strategic initiative for our council. So thank you all, and please bear with me. So Chamber, this is an important day for council, and again, I've acknowledged the work that Councillor Shoemaker has done. All credit to you and to the other councillors on putting forward your very passionate views about getting this right, to ensure that we get this right. Customer service standards are at the core of the business that we are in, and that is to service the community of the South Burnett region. And of course, this charter sets the platform, sets the guidelines for our staff to follow. I do believe that we have a very committed team of over 300 staff here who do this job not just for the pay packet, but because it provides them with an opportunity through council to make a significant contribution to their community, as we do as councillors. These guidelines now set down our expectations for the staff as to the performance standards in relation to customer service. And I'd just like to read item 3.1.2. I think that really does tell the story. Our service standards such that council employees will be rostered to ensure the continuation of service levels are kept during opening hours. Council regards the timely response to customer telephone inquiries as a priority customer service standard, providing an indication as to the anticipated time frame in which Council will work to resolve the request or provide additional information. At each point of contact, where possible, in addition to providing written correspondence, Council encourages the Council employee responsible for the customer request to make contact by telephone with the customer service, with the customer, where it is the preferred form of contact as nominated by the customer. Council has a strong focus on building rapport and good relationships with its customers, and a telephone conversation between the customer and the relevant department is recognised as supporting this intent. I'll leave it there. Again, I know Council has worked hard with staff. Thank you all. A new set of guidelines, a new policy, 12 years after the initial policy was developed. It certainly is. I think it has elements of new contemporary technologies built into it, but it also, I think, has a nice splash of some good old-fashioned customer service, and isn't that nice to see, where we're not just relying on technology through emails or text messages to communicate. We're now putting a good old-fashioned emphasis on picking up the phone, ringing the residents of the South Burnett, having a conversation with them. That's now policy of Council. That will be implemented through our CEO right across the organisation, and I believe that will go a long way to building a much stronger connection between our Council and our community. So I applaud you all. Well done, and very much look forward to seeing this resolved by Council. Thank you. Okay, so we have ready to vote. No one else wishes to speak. So those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you again to everyone involved. Okay, so Councillor Shoemaker, we're on to 9.6. Councillor Shoemaker, just for the minutes, is now leaving the room and will stay away until the item is attended to. 9.6 is at 43 and is the adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council procurement policy. So the procurement policy was presented to the Executive and Finance Corporate Standing Committee meeting on the 17th of February. And as such, the recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council Procurement Policy Statutory 007 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one has been my baby because I've been agonising over for a very long time about trying to get all of the local businesses a chance to quote on council business, because I've had so many complaints over the years of businesses saying that they didn't get a chance to quote for council, and now in the policy we've got ingrained in the policy that every local will get an business that can supply a service will get an opportunity to quote, and that's all I think the businesses have ever wanted, was just an opportunity to quote. Sometimes they won't be competitive, they just want to know that they have that opportunity to have a go. So I just wanted to stand for this one. I'm already standing, but I think this one is a big one for us too. So, absolutely, with the customer service standards, but this procurement one is one that we've got to get right, and I think we've got it right this time. Fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duff, in moving the motion and speaking to it. Of course, for members, for those in the gallery and those watching online, this is another significant development for Council. A lot of work has gone into this. So again, I would congratulate and thank Mr. CEO, you and your team on getting us to this point. This isn't the first time it's come to the table. We've worked through it on a number of occasions, but it shows a very strong commitment by Council, this document, to buying locally, to supporting local small businesses where we're able to, within the confines of legislation that does govern our purchasing practices. But this certainly will open up much more opportunity, at least the opportunity to quote. And I think that's all that small businesses are after. I would acknowledge that it will mean more work for our procurement staff, and I'd like to thank them for being prepared to take on the extra workload that will come with having to process many more quotes with a number of the transactions that then I'll have to be dealing with. But I would like to speak in favour of the motion. Other councillors wishing to speak for or against? If not, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. And again, General Manager Jarvis, please pass on our sincere thanks to your team for a wonderful effort in getting this policy resolved through Council, and we'll look forward to seeing the benefits to the small businesses across the region as Council continues to provide its commitment to such. We'll bring Councillor Shoemaker back in now and move on to item 9.7 at 60, which is the monthly financial report. Welcome back, Councillor Shoemaker. Council, the monthly financial report as at the 31st of January is as enclosed. The officer's recommendation is that the report, including the capital works and works for Queensland W4Q4, as at 31 January 2021, be received and noted. As the portfolio holder for finance, I would now move such. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Any questions in relation to the contents of the report? Right, we'll go to the vote. Councillor Shoemaker, my apologies. Please proceed.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I was just looking for my notes. There's just a question in relation to depreciation on page 10. The comment is, as at the 31st of January 2021, depreciation is tracking just under target at 57%, and this will be impacted by capitalisation and disposals of the works in progress accounts leading up to June 2021. I just had a question in terms of, how much depreciation we have on our books. I just want to confirm, are all of our assets fully depreciated? And what proportion of the assets that we have are actually unfunded depreciation? Am I making sense?
I'd have to take that on notice for accuracy there, councillor, but if you want to, with the asset general manager, Ian might be able to help you there.
Yeah, just to clarify with the WIP, so what will happen with the WIP, as the team deliver the capital works, you'll see a large capitalisation in the third quarter because the projects are getting delivered. In regards to your question around the unfunded, what it'll be the any asset that's on our financial register will be depreciated, so anything physical. So what will be is what's unfunded, so it's, in our case, it's $3 million or something like that. It'll be the percentage of the total value. But we can take you through that with the asset workshops coming up if you like, if that probably to give everyone a great understanding of it.
If that's possible, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, happy to.
I'm happy to move a motion or
No, we would do it anyway,
notice, but
Councillor.
I would really like to better understand that moving forward, please.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. And if I could perhaps just add to the commentary there, it's a good question. As the finance portfolio holder, we have been through some processes over recent years where we have had a revaluation and a resetting of the depreciation schedule in relation to road infrastructure, transport infrastructure, our road network basically, our bridges, etc., and also our buildings, our council building assets, which are quite significant across the South Burnett region. For information purposes, the depreciation for the current year's budget, the annual depreciation is expected to come in at $21.4 million. And thus far, the depreciation expensed for 7 months to 31 January is just under 12.3 million. So that 12.3 million represents 57% of the annual allocation for the 7 months. And if one was to do a 7 out of 12 month calculation, that would come in at 58%. So we're pretty well tracking spot on with our year-to-date depreciation to what we budgeted. But of course, there is a continuing body of work going on around valuation of assets, as we always do. Our asset management planning and depreciation will obviously be an important consideration for us as we move into the next budget cycle over the next 3 months, moving to hopefully budget adoption date on 30 June. So a good question. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and General Managers look forward to seeing that information come forward. Just so everyone understands, for those who haven't had a chance to read the document, so far Council has received recurring revenue of approximately $34 million year to date. We've received grants and subsidies of 4.2 million, so 38.4 million approximately. Recurrent expenses 41.5 million. So we do have a net result of 3.2 million thus far as a deficit at this point in time. And as we've previously articulated, Councillor Shoemaker has raised the revaluation, the depreciation expense is a significant component of that, and Council will be working very proactively to address that deficit in coming months as we work on the 21-22 budget. Having said that, our statement of position is fairly strong. We still have a reasonably strong level of cash at bank, and which obviously exceeds to quite a large extent our current level of borrowings. So overall, Council's in a reasonably strong financial position, but we do have certainly some work to do in dealing with our operating expenses moving through the budget cycle. Okay, so councillors, again, thank you for the question. Councillor Shoemaker, did you want to add anything further?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, just through you, just a question. If GM Susan would just give us a bit of a indication. I've had a look at the different ratios, and it looks like we are tracking really, really well. And I just wanted to, just have some general summary about our key performance indicators, our ratios on page 31 of the monthly financial report.
Thank you, Councillor. These, sorry, I'm just trying to get the page here. Where we are within target, these ratios are set, and the formulas are there on the page there showing you as far as your cash ratio, your operating cash ratio, your current ratio, and we're within range of all of those ratios. You'll see the status there, the green ticks, and the council, as the mayor, is in a strong financial position, as indicated by these indicators. This month, you'll see our cash is down a little bit, but that's only because we've just levied rates. We're looking at probably another 20 million coming in for rates revenue. You'll see a lot of our expenses have come through because you've got your annual registrations, you've got your annual insurance fees, so we've paid out a lot of money. It's yet to be retrieved. But council has got no worries as far as your ratios go here. We're in target with all of them, which is good. Your cash has dropped, which has brought us down into the ratio, correct ratio, whereas as the Mayor alluded to last time, we did have a red tick there, but it wasn't a bad thing because we had more cash than what we really not needed, but what the ratio indicated was appropriate.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you, General Manager. It's a really good question. Key performance indicators, monthly reporting. These are indicators that are set by the state authorities. And if we look at QTC, for example, cash ratio, total cash held. So the guideline is that we should have at least 3 months of cash at bank. We've got 8.4 months there in terms of total cash. As at 31 January, the operating cash ratio, which is the funds available for operations, 3 months, that's a 3-month figure. Again, we're at 3.1, a little bit close to the line on this occasion, but of course that fluctuates up and down. It's a moving beast. We have rates notices have gone out, so we'll see that flow of rates revenue come in over between now and the end of March, which will clearly then push that ratio back up. So that's probably at the trough at this point in time. We'll see that peak up over the next 3 months. Current ratio is an assessment of an organisation's liquidity, our position of our current assets in relation to our current liabilities should be between 2 and 4.3, and ours is at 3.3, so that is in a moderate to strong position. Our funded long-term liabilities should be greater than or equal to 59%. We're sitting at 67%, so that shows that we have a strong capacity to pay our long-term borrowings back. Our debt servicing ratio, again, looks at our interest and loan repayments, what it's costing us over our operating revenue. It's, again, an assessment of one's capacity to repay debt. Should be, and so the interest and loan redemption costs should be no more than 10% of the total revenue. We are at 7.7%, so again, in a safe space there. The cash balance in millions of dollars is at 35 million, as Susan said, a little bit low, but we don't tend to go much lower than that. That'll go back up, that'll spike back up when the rates revenue comes in between now and the end of March. Debt to asset ratio, which is our current and non-current loans, so that's all of our borrowings over our total assets. So we often call that in accounting terms the extent to which one is leveraged, and we are at 3.9, I think it's 3.9, is it? It's a bit small, 3.6%, and of course the QTC guideline is to be less than 10%. So we have 3.6% of our total assets in long-term debt, in total debt. If, as an accountant, if I had a client who was only leveraged at 3.6%, I'd be fairly happy. So that's a good position to be in as well. Interest coverage ratio should be between 0 and 5. We're at 2.7%. So just a bit more detail there from the finance portfolio to confirm that General Manager very much we're travelling quite well with our finances at this point in time. But having said that, of course, we'll continue to work in council to make sure that we are managing the community's money in a responsible and in a very sustainable manner for the term of this council and for future generations. Okay, well, thank you all. We'll now put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, it's now 10:17, so we might just continue through to 10:30, then we'll break for morning tea. We'll now go on to the wastewater charges options modelling at 112. That's item 9.8 on the agenda. And so again, Council, this matter was considered at the Executive, Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting on the 17th of February, and the recommendation is that Council proceed to community consultation to engage with constituents that may be affected by the proposed changes to the wastewater methodology, largely being flats, educational facilities and hospitals in relation to proposed additional pedestal reclassification, and commercial properties in relation to the proposed review of second pedestal charges in conjunction with first pedestal charges to ensure a fair and equitable contribution to the sewerage network costs. I would hereby move such as the finance portfolio holder. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against the motion? Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first point I'd like to make here is there are already some units paying the full charge. And to bring this back into line, this will make it fair and equitable, which is what we're trying to do across the board. So, and also a letter will be sent out to every affected person and an organisation along these lines. And we are working, this will be coming to a workshop in March. So I think that this needs to be looked at a whole of community look, because as I said, there are people that are already paying this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Potter, and I think that's a really good point, that we have some cases across the region where individual flats are paying the first pedestal charge, each and every one of those, but in other cases, we have where we might have a group of flats on one block of land. One of the flats may be paying the first pedestal charge, and as the example demonstrates there, you may then have another 3 flats out of, say, 4, and those other 3 flats are only paying the second pedestal charge. And of course, the second pedestal charge is significantly less than the first pedestal charge. So this is very much about creating consistency. Councillor Jones often talks about being fair and consistent. This is trying to create that fairness and consistency across our sewerage network charging methodology. The other one is that in relation to educational facilities and hospitals, there is a proposal in relation to the additional pedestal classification in that we would be looking to increase the second pedestal charge to again bring that into line to create that equity arrangement. But of course, the motion today really goes to getting this out to community consultation. I know council's very committed to making sure that the community and the businesses and the stakeholders who are going to be affected by this have every opportunity to engage with council before any resolution is passed on this matter. Okay, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to absolutely acknowledge what you've just said, that I think this is a great example of council working with the community and about consultation and taking the community with them. In a lot of times in the past, I think it's always happened after the event, whereas this time we're proactive, and I think we need to move towards that when we're going to make major changes to anything that affects the bottom line of businesses or individuals. We need to be out there on the front foot working with the community so that they understand what's happening before it happens. So I really, really applaud the council and the council team to put this on the table now for community consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. And I know at the Standing Committee meeting we had some discussion about what would actually be the content of the messaging that's going to be going out to the community pursuant to this resolution. Should it be decided by council to proceed? And Mr CEO, would it be correct to say that we'll get that information at the workshop in March? Councils will have opportunity to see that information before it goes to the community?
Yes, there will be certainly a workshop in March, and there's a report being generated. The purpose of this resolution today is to start early engagement with affected parties to ensure that they're aware that council's considering it. So there's probably a little bit more conversation at councillor level, if I've understood you right, Mr. Mayor. And then, but to definitely get on the front foot with anyone who possibly may be affected. And again, to reiterate what's been said several times, this resolution is about engaging and talking to people, not anywhere near a final decision.
Thank you, Mr CEO. So yeah, just confirm that that the media strategy, the information that will be going out to the community, the messaging, the content, will come back for councillors to have a look at in an informal setting at least before that's, hope that puts council's mind at ease, that you'll have an opportunity to see that before it goes out to the community. Okay, other councillors wishing to speak to the matter? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 9.9 at 114 is quote SBRC 2021-30, replacement of Caterpillar 938G loader, plant 54. As I said, that's at 114. And this matter was considered at a previous meeting, was put on hold while some further work was done in relation to our plant and fleet review. As such, we're now in a position to be able to consider the matter again. The recommendation is that council purchase from RDO the John Deere 544K2 for $308,000 excluding GST to replace the ageing waste loader, plant 54 at 11 years old, in line with the 10-year replacement plan for loaders. The John Deere 544K2 loader meets the weight specification requested, has the best whole-of-life costs, has the highest score in the evaluation, and was agreed by all involved that this machine would be a much more suitable machine for the Kingaroy waste facility than the other machines offered. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I did move at the December meeting that this matter lay on the table. I just wanted to acknowledge the report put before us. It's absolutely fabulous, and I think it sets the expectation of this council moving forward when it comes to decisions of this matter. I think it's really important that we have all of this information available for us, and I'm really impressed with what's been brought before council. So thank you, and certainly I think, you know, moving forward, reports of this sort of are expected and appreciated. So thank you, Mr Mayor, and if GM Susan would like to add anything, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. General Manager.
Thanks, Councillor. Through you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate that comment, Councillor, and I totally agree with you. I think that this is absolutely outstanding, excellent report, and I think it does set the bar for future reports. It is very concise. It gives you all the information you need to make those decisions there on behalf of the community, and I appreciate it, and I'll take that back to the officers who presented this report, and thank you for that feedback.
Thank you, General Manager, and well said, Councillor Shoemaker. Of course, this council takes our responsibilities to the community in relation to managing their finances very seriously, and we always do our absolute best to make sure that we are very thorough in our due diligence. And as Councillor Shoemaker has clearly explained, this report is very comprehensive. It addresses all the issues. And I certainly now am happy to support this motion on the basis that I am satisfied that we have done all the checks and balances necessary to confirm that this is a much-needed purchase for the ongoing operations of our Kingaroy Waste facility. Councillor Jones.
Yes, Mr Mayor, through you, I agree with what the councillor has noted. It is a much more thorough report, but to me I completely understand where the council was coming from in December, but it justifies the information that was delivered. It wasn't delivered in the extent of this report, and I totally support the councillor and the mayor in this. But I'd also like to comment that we were very lucky with this company to extend our quotes, because this could have put us in a position where this could have cost this council a considerable amount of extra money if we had have not been able to extend that lease. So I commend the staff, yourself, General Manager Jarvis, and able to work with the people that we're purchasing the equipment off to extend that lease. So I fully appreciate the comments of the councillor in regards to the report. Yes, it may lack a little bit of depth and whatever else, and this one is completely spot on. And I acknowledge the fact that moving forward, they're the reports that we need to go or have to come back to council. But yeah, we're just very lucky in this situation. So very happy to see this and support this motion and get this plant back to the people to do their job properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Other councillors, Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'll just support this fully and agree with Councillor Shoemaker and Jones, and again the staff. And I think in future, when these articles come up for replacement, it'd be good to see that report first up rather than we spend a couple of months. But a very comprehensive support, and read it and fully supported previously, and I think the guys out there in the facility that it's going to be in will be looking forward to receiving that machine. So yeah, great work, and that report is very detailed, and compliments too to the people that tendered as well, like John Deere and Komatsu. You know, it wasn't all negative on the Komatsu side, so it's been a good decision across the board.
Thanks, Councillor Henson. Okay, councillors, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you again, Mr CEO and staff. Councillors, we'll go to item 9.10 at 119, which is SBRC healthcare providers. So this report was presented to the Executive and Finance Corporate Standing Committee meeting on the 17th of February, and as such, it's recommended that Council approve the list of providers to be included in the Register of Providers for Healthcare Services in alignment with the tender consideration plan adopted on 19 August 2020 in accordance with Section 230 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froeloff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillors in chamber, I'll just clarify. So this is for the provision of health care services to council employees, staff, and a significant amount of work has gone in by our strategic procurement coordinator, our procurement team, to getting us to this point. Okay, we'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, it's now 10:30. I hereby move that we adjourn for morning tea and resume at 10:45 a.m. Do we have a mover? I'll move that. Second to Councillor Jones. Thank you. I know you'll be keen for a cup of tea and a bicky. As am I. All in favour? Yep, okay. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you back at 10:45 a.m. And members of the gallery, please feel free to join us for a cuppa. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, councillors. I'll now move that we reopen the meeting at 10:50 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Meeting reopened 10:50 a.m. We're up to item 9.11, which is at 1:25, and presented to the Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting on the 17th of February was a report in relation to entering into a 12-month supply arrangement for high-vis field uniforms for council staff, and the recommendation is that South Bennett Regional Council approve the recommendation to establish a 12-month supply arrangement for high-visibility field uniforms. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. On to item 10.1, which is under roads and drainage at 128, update to standard street name and sign and style guides. Right, so the recommendation here is that Council resolves to adopt a standard street blade and roundabout street sign, that the revisions to the standard street name sign drawing as specified in attachment 1, option 4 be adopted and implemented on all new and replacement street name signs, that the standard roundabout name sign drawing as specified in attachment 2, option 3 be adopted and implemented on all new and replacement roundabout name signs, and that the style guidelines be updated to reflect the change to the standard street name sign. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr Mayor, this is another marked improvement across our region and bringing into uniformity right across our region from Blackbutt, Pross and everywhere in between. I think it's a great idea, and it will only be done, it won't be done across the whole region at once. It'll be done as the signs need to be replaced, and we'll work our way through. So it could take a long time to get every single sign done, but as the signs need to be done, these will be the new signs that go up.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, they've got, in attachment 2, they've got option 3 listed. Option 3 does not have the council logo on. And I'm sorry, but from our discussions, I thought we were going to actually go for option 5, which is the one with the council logo on at least.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. So has everyone got that document there? So, of course, the roundabout street name signs is what Councillor Potter's referring to. And option 3, Councillor Potter, was the suggested option. General Manager, did you want to just comment on that? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Just to answer the councillor's question, the outcome of the standing committee was to add option 5 as an option. And the other outcome for that was for the officers to put through a recommendation of our suggestion. We added option 5, but we actually thought option 3 looked the best from our point of view. That was our only thing. Council's welcome to change the option if they wish, but we just thought we thought it looked the best. We did talk about the logo not being available on that sign, but in addition to the roundabout sign, the street blades beside that will have the logo on them. We just thought that looked the best on the roundabout to keep it simple, and didn't make the sign too busy. That was our only feedback, councillor. But it's up to council to decide, I suppose. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks very much, General Manager. So, councillors, let's have a good look at this. Let's make sure we get this one right. First of all, is everyone comfortable with the motion which refers to attachment 1, option 4. So that's the street sign. We've got the street name, and off to the left you've got the logo with the council name underneath it. So then we come back to attachment 2, 5 options there. Councillor Potter, are you thinking you'd like to look at option 5 with the logo but without the name? So we've got the resolution. Who was our mover again there, Linnell, if we could? That was Councillor Shoemaker. Probably keen to hear your thoughts as a mover. Councillor Shoemaker, what are you thinking?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had, to be honest, I think consistency in updating these signs is the number one priority. I did have option 5 circled. However, hearing GM Meehan's comments, I do tend to agree in terms of if we've got too many logos around, does it look really quite busy? And I do, in hearing him, whilst I'm hearing what Councillor Potter's saying, and I do love the swirl for all that it represents, I can see how it could create, clutter, in that we're trying to go for a very clean kind of look through our CBDs, a modern kind of look. So whilst I'm hearing Councillor Potter, I do acknowledge what Councillor GM Meehan has said. So I probably would like to hear from the chamber in terms of, I could go either way really, what the view is, but that's my thinking anyway. I can see the staff have put a lot of time and effort into planning this. I know Aaron Kerr has spoke to the chamber previously and has done a lot of work behind the scenes, very passionate about getting this updated. So yeah, probably keen to hear what fellow councillors have to say.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Duff?
I agree with Councillor Potter, but just to complicate things, I actually think that option 1 actually doesn't look so in your face if you wanted to make it a bit more discreet. And then it's got the name underneath, and it's consistent with the option 4. But yeah, I'm not, I'm happy with the staff's recommendation. It's not like, yeah, I'm not going to, die in a ditch over it, but I just thought maybe we could consider option 1.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Did you say you're not going to die in a ditch over it?
Because I'm not going to, it's not like it's. It's not something that I'm, thinking it's going to, I'm happy with the staff's recommendation, but if it was me, I'd do option 1.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I'm often entertained by your colonial colloquialisms. We've now heard the phrase "die in a ditch." Maybe I'll get to use that at some point in time in the future. Yeah, look. My only concern with option 1, if just speaking as one of the councillors looking at this, is it for longer street names? So, for example, if you were to put, say, Dooncoona Street in there, that might make it challenging. Yeah, I do love our brand. I do like the logo. I think it's the swirl, the colours. I think we've got one of the better regional council brands that I've seen as I drive around. And yeah, I'm a bit with Councillor Shoemaker that it does make it a little bit cluttered. But having said that, I'm sort of also swinging back towards you, Councillor Potter, that it's nice to get the brand and the logo on there to identify it with council. So it's good branding. I could go either way, but I'm probably thinking, for me personally, I'd like option 5. Just my thinking. What are other councillors thinking? Anyone else want to add? Councillor Froloff?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I also like option 5. I understand that option 3 is really nice, and I was concerned originally about over-cluttering the boards, but I'll go for option 5. Thank you.
So that being the case, if I could just propose, Councillor Shoemaker, if we were to change the recommendation so that in sentence number 3 there, where it says roundabout signs, attachment 2 replace option 3 with option 5. Would you be comfortable with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm fully comfortable with that.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Okay, so councillors, we now have the motion there. We've changed option 2 to option 5. And Councillor Froloff, you're clearly comfortable with that as well as the seconder.
Yes, Mayor, I am.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, councillors. We'll now put it to the vote. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Councillor Jones, you're a bit slow in responding, but carried unanimously. Thank you all, and thanks General Manager Meehan and your staff. It's going to be nice to see those rolled out as we need to replace signs over time across our region. Okay, let's move on to item 10.2, Kilkeevan-Kingaroy Rail Trail Cycle Network and Car Park Upgrade at 134. The Cycle Network's Local Government Grants Program application for funding of construction of the South Burnett's Principal Cycle Network, PCN, along the Kilkeevan to Kingaroy Rail Trail, and Infrastructure Department are seeking to submit an application for funding under this Cycle Network's Local Government Grants Program for a 50% co-contribution of funding for the construction of high-quality and safe cycling infrastructure facilities to promote healthy movement in the community and to improve accessibility to the upgraded cycleway. And as such, the recommendation is that Council make application to the Cycle Network's Local Government Grants Program for 50% co-contribution of funding for the construction of high-quality and safe cycling infrastructure facilities along the Kilkeevan to Kingaroy Rail Trail, and if successful, commits to deliver the project and allocates funds of $150,000 as a co-contribution from the proposed 21-22 capital budget. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. The Kingaroy councillors are quickly on the job. Now hand over to councillors wishing to speak for or against. Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is something I've been advocating for quite some time, and I'm very excited to actually have this one go through council, and I hope it does. But look, to have this done, this will be the perfect start point for the rail trail. And once we get the rail trail section done, and then we can get the intersection done on the main road, this will just make it just beautiful, and just, I think we'll probably get more people using it. And where the people are parking now on the rail trail is actually quite dangerous. As they're driving over the rail trail, they're parking beside the shed. And I really don't think that this is the best option for the rail trail users. So to have the rail trail users parking at the car park off King Street and then using that first section of the rail trail, I think is just going to be better for all. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. And clearly, health and safety of our rail trail users is paramount here. As Councillor Potter has said, and I'm well aware that the current car park is less than desirable, but this would be a much better arrangement. And this is the area between Haley Street and King Street, so the current undeveloped line along there. It would be nice to see that further developed. So, excellent. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I fully agree with Councillor Potter's comments, and I think building on, I'd also like to point out the work Councillor Frolof's done in Nanango with the new bike racks in the main street. You know, I think what our region's aiming to do in terms of being a rail trail friendly, inviting and welcoming tourists who are travelling to the region for the rail trail is really important to our growth and prosperity going forward. So I just think this is a great project. It's a great start in terms of what we hope to be maybe a much bigger project. I know Councillor Potter and I have some grand visions for that area, so we might have to get a little bit realistic with our expectations, Councillor Potter, in some cases. But certainly, I think it's a great move forward, and I thank the staff for bringing the application forward. And my fingers and toes are crossed that we may be successful with this one.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yes, this one surprised me. I must have slipped over this one. So this grant application will, if I'm correct, upgrade the current dirt surface to bitumen. Is that correct? From Youngman Street down here to the head of the rail trail. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll be, just checked with James this morning, Council, it'll be concrete. So the project will be to put a concrete, if I may, the section is actually deemed a cycleway under the state program. So the project originally was a lot more high value when we first considered it. So I've asked for it to be stripped back to a concrete and solar lighting through there,
Alrighty,
which
so,
would be 50-50
so
funded.
just from Youngman Street up to
Back of
the-
O'Neill Square, mate.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
No, fully supportive of that, that to happen. It'll just be obviously very interesting how we fund it. That's all with the 150,000 that we're committing to it if successful with the grant. So knowing that the budget discussions are just about to start and what our budgetary restrictions may be moving forward. So happy to work through and try and fund it, and I will support it. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Councillor Jones. We'll go to the vote if everyone's comfortable. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you, General Manager and your team for coming forward with that very, very promising initiative. Okay, let's move on to 12.1, a proposed amendment to the South Burnett Regional Council Planning Scheme of 2017 at 138. Now, Council, recommendation here is that Council resolve to make an amendment to the South Burnett Regional Council Planning Scheme 2017 under Chapter 2, Part 4 of the Minister's Guidelines and Rules. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Over the page, we've got quite a big agenda, but we'll move on to 12.2 at 139, the Economic Support Instrument provision in the Planning Regulation 2017. Recommendation is that Council resolve to adopt the following economic support instrument in accordance with Part 8B of the Planning Regulation 2017. Economic support instrument under Section 68D1 of the Planning Regulation 2017. 1. Adoption. This economic support instrument is adopted under the Planning Regulation 2017 for the purpose of assisting in supporting economic recovery from the impacts of the COVID-19 emergency. Oh, okay. So it's going to be a bit
Mr. Mayor,
direct, Mr. CEO.
so for the resolution to be effective, it carries all that information as part of the resolution. So it will be quite extensive to read it out if you are looking to do that.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Would it be in breach of any policy if I was just to say to the councillors, look, the report's on screen, you've got it in your agenda.
It's in the agenda as presented.
As presented. Okay. Thank you, Mr. CEO. You saved me probably a good 15 minutes of losing my voice. Okay, Council, as the recommendation is as presented, do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Right. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. And thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Okay, let's go to 12.3 at 144. Request to waive building bond for relocatable dwelling at 7 Harris Street in Huysville. Recommendation is that Council waive the $40,000 security bond for the relocation of a dwelling on land at 7 Harris Street, Huysville, pursuant to Section 5.1.5 of Council's Sundry Debtors Recovery and Refund Policy. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 12.4 at 145, submission, Great Barrier Reef catchment area. And a resolution was moved at the floor at the Community Standing Committee meeting held on February 10 that Council supported submission to the State Government requesting that the South Burnett region be left out of the proposed Great Barrier Reef catchment area. And the recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council endorse the CEO's submission to the State Government requesting that the South Burnett region be left out of the proposed Great Barrier Reef catchment area. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Duff.
Just wanted to thank CEO Mark. It was short notice to get that submission in. I think he did a really good job, and I'm hopefully, I don't know whether we'll get a good outcome, but at least we put forward the case on behalf of the South Burnett farmers, because I'm worried about the regulations and the impact they're going to have on our farmers if they do go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. If I could just say that I did raise some concerns about this when it was raised at the Standing Committee meeting, and I think councillors identified in our draft corporate plan that environmental sustainability and caring for the environment is a really important matter to this council. But I must thank Councillor Henson and Councillor Duff, both as rural people, on clarifying that these regulations, as they apply to the South Burnett, seem to be excessive in terms of any potential impact that our region could have on the reef. We're a long way from the reef, and I thank you both for clarifying that for me. So I was feeling much more comfortable in supporting this and voting for it, knowing that my learned colleagues could certainly assure us that the bigger picture here was keeping the farmers' livelihoods, protecting the farmers' livelihoods. Could also thank Councillor Shoemaker and Duff for bringing this motion to our Standing Committee, and also acknowledge the work that BIEDO, the Ag Network, as funded by Council, has done through Alan Broome, and also the persistent approach that our local member, Deb Frecklington, has taken in taking up the good fight to the government in support of our local farmers. I think Deb should be applauded for that. That's her job. She's doing it very well. We have sent the submission, and thank you very much, Mr. CEO. It was a very good submission, and let's hope that it gets the ears that it deserves, and that our farmers get a fair go in relation to these regulations, which clearly seem to be administratively very challenging and clearly are going to make life even tougher for farmers who are already doing it tough on country that has been rendered marginal by the ongoing drought conditions. So congratulations to everyone involved, and certainly Councillor Henson for the work you've done in pushing this cause across the region as well, along with other councillors. So yes, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just acknowledge the work you do in terms of advocacy for our region and noting how important this this task is, certainly for our region. Particularly with the South Burnett being left out of the proposed Great Barrier Reef catchment area, I really do believe that would be the smart and reasonable thing for the government to do in this instance. So probably a question for you, Mr. Mayor. In terms, the letter has gone, thank you, CEO Mark. Is there anything further that you can do with the ministers and the contacts you have in Parliament to really make this a key priority, to push this barrow for us here in the South Burnett, because this is such an important issue, as you say, to the livelihoods of our farmers. And I'm not sure it stops with the submission, particularly if it's not listened to and acted on in ways in which it should. So I guess I'm just keen to hear from you, Mr. Mayor, if there's anything more that can be done in this space with the contacts that you have to really advocate and push for this for our region. I'm really passionate about seeing some outcomes, because certainly 160 people piled into the hall, it was loud and clear that this won't work here in our region, and it's pretty loud and clear that there is no scientific evidence as to how any of the findings from these really strict measures that the South Burnett may take may actually help the reef. So there's some of my concerns. So I'd really like to hear from you more, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. It's an excellent question. It provides me the opportunity to update everybody, including the gallery. I am in the process of reaching out to local member Frecklington. We're just trying to make contact with each other at the moment, so that Deb and I can have a meeting, and she can give me brief me with a lot more detail around this. Having done that, I have spoken with Minister Furner, the Agricultural Minister's Chief of Staff, yesterday, while Parliament was sitting, and we've organised to have a teleconference this afternoon in relation to this matter, and the objective of that teleconference is to set up a meeting with the Minister, so that we, myself and some of us in chamber here, along with our CEO, can share with the Minister at a face-to-face meeting in Brisbane our concerns as to the impact of these regulations on our ag economy here, and hoping that from that we can get some positive action on this. So excellent question. Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Yes, so they're certainly working at the moment on setting up a meeting with Deb, setting up a meeting with Ag Minister Furner, and hoping that we can get that meeting scheduled for next week. And I'll invite some of you, councillors, to join me on that if we can make space to do so that we can share that really important message, as you've said. I think, Councillor Shoemaker, your words will be ringing through my ears. These regulations are not smart and are not reasonable when it comes to our region's farmers. So thank you very much. Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Could I just add to that, like our region, yeah, for sure, but I'd like to also throw it out there, this has major impacts on other and all rural sectors in Queensland. Like, it's not just the South Burnett as much as Councillor Shoemaker has said. Of course, it's a huge impact to us here, but it's also a huge impact to the rural sector and the rest of this state.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I suppose for the media, reporting on this, please understand that our council is very much an environmentally friendly council. We've made that important part of our corporate plan. We know that we have a number of, a large population of people in our region who are also very much concerned about the environment. We know that our farmers themselves work very hard. They are the ultimate custodians of the land that they own, and continue on with many of the practices that our Indigenous brothers and sisters continued on for thousands of years in looking after the land. And the farmers, I know, do their best to do that in the modern era. We're very conscious of the fact, and I spoke about the fact, that we do have a lot of people in our region, particularly the younger population, who are very concerned about the climate and very much concerned about the reef and about our natural resources. We're very conscious of that, but we don't feel, and I agree now, that in all things considered, that this legislation is going to, that including the South Burnett in the catchment area, that is going to have any real tangible benefit to the reef. In fact, the economic cost will be far outweigh any small benefit as we see it. So all things considered, this would be a very sensible approach to support the farmers on this, yeah. Okay, well, thanks everybody. That being the case, we'll now put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all, and look forward to involving councillors in that political conversations over coming weeks. Okay, let's move on now to item 12.5 at 146, which is invitation to join the Queensland Climate Resilience Council program. And let's go to that. So at the Standing Committee meeting held on the 10th of February, the community meeting, there was a report advising that an invitation has been received inviting council to join the Queensland Climate Resilient Councils, the QCRC program, and the recommendation is South Burnett Regional Council agrees to participate in the Queensland Climate Resilient Councils program. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Jones, thank you.
Just quickly, Mr Mayor, this backs up exactly the conversation we've just come out of. So it's a move that council needs to take and show leadership.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. I think it's very succinctly and very well said. Councillor Henson.
Mr Mayor, thank you. Could I just note there, it says in Queensland Climate Resilience Council's program, did we mention the year-by-year term on that, like take it 12 months at a time?
I don't know that we did, Councillor Henson, but is that something we could consider, Mr CEO?
Yeah, we could. The terms of these sorts of participation, we can put a cap on it, but generally councils just engage in these programs, and then should it no longer fulfil a need or it suspend, well then we just pull out at that point or change the engagement. It's up to council, but certainly as it currently stands, it's we engage, and then there is no direct costs from memory from the Standing Committee report, but yeah, happy to take council's direction, but we were just going to become a member and see where it went.
You happy if we did that, Councillor Henson, then we review that in 12 months' time and see how we're travelling?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm hearing Councillor Henson. However, I believe when we become a member of something, we really do need to demonstrate our long-standing commitment. And when it comes to climate here in the region, as you said, agriculture is a giant part of our GDP, and it's clear, we're looking at another year of less than average rainfall, And I'm heartbroken to see the crops across our region that started with such promise. And, we're all sitting here watching them go blue, hoping that we get the rain soon. I think this broader discussion about climate resilience for our region is really, really important. It aligns with, as we say, our commitment to environmental sustainability, and I don't think this is we might be in and we might be out sort of arrangement. I absolutely think we need to be at the table, taking the learnings, bringing them back to this chamber, and doing all that we can to really lead this council in an environmentally responsible and conscious way. So I'm fully supportive of becoming a member and having that long-standing commitment, I think, to improving the situation at hand.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and of course that is your ongoing support. I know you've worked hard in council to share with us the importance of an environmental sustainability plan strategy for council. I know you've really pushed hard to get that big focus on environmental sustainability and making sure that council is very, very proactive in this space as part of our key priorities in the corporate plan. So thank you for continuing that work. Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr. Yeah. No, look, I'm fully supportive of this. It was just a comment I made in relation to what might change or come out of the reef study in time to come, and certainly what Resilient Council's approach might be in time to come. But no, I'm 100% supportive of it.
Thanks, Councillor Henson. We'll go to the vote. Councillors, those in favour? Councillor Potter, those in favour? Okay, yep, you're good. Rightio, very good. That's carried unanimously. Thank you all. Right, let's go on to 13.1 at 148, which is overgrown allotment enforcement. Have I missed one again? Look, I've done it twice. Oh, goodness. It's not that I'm keen to get through it. It's just an oversight. Thank you, Linnell. 12.6, my apologies, 147, Subcommittee for the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan. And the recommendation is that a subcommittee be established to consider and inform the Mayor in relation to Council's input to the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan, and that the subcommittee include Councillor Henson and Councillor Shoemaker, along with council officers as determined by the Chief Executive Officer. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 13.1 at 148, overgrown allotments, and the recommendation is that Council approve a review into the overgrown allotment operations of Council with a view to a stricter enforcement protocol. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Illegal occupation of private land at 149. Recommendation is that Council approve the development of an illegal occupation on private land policy, procedure and enforcement strategy. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. For or against? Sorry, speakers for or against? Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. 14.1 at 150. And that is the placement of Indigenous flag outside all customer service centres across the South Burnett. Recommendation is that as part of the 21-22 budget deliberations, Council investigate the costs associated with the installation of flagpoles across the region to allow the Australian flag and an Indigenous flag to be flown at each customer service centre or suitable alternate venue. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Those wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Duff, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is, as Indigenous Affairs portfolio holder, I think that this is a great move. I know that at some of the public Australia Day in particular, Eric Law said that he was witnessing ground changing with things that he thought he would never see, and one of those was the Indigenous flag, Aboriginal flag flying in Mergen, and then the other one was the Waka Waka language being taught at the Mergen school. So I think that he will be, as an elder of the Waka Waka people, he would be very pleased that this resolution is also being carried, because I think that that's another landmark for showing our moving forward to build relationships and reconciliation with the Indigenous people.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. One of the things that I love about this council is that we have 7 councillors who are unified in our commitment to our Indigenous brothers and sisters. I think it's absolutely wonderful to be part of such an open-minded group of people who recognise the importance of recognising the Indigenous people of Australia, the First Nations people, and what a wonderful history we have in the region with the Waka Waka people, who were such a prominent nation of people, across a massive area of land that goes well out west into the Western Downs region. So, we should be very proud, and it gives me goosebumps when I think about the fact that we live with the oldest remaining civilization on the planet. Australia has the oldest artwork on the planet. And isn't it wonderful that we've got such a high profile of Indigenous people right across our South Burnett region? And it's always great to continue to work with Cherbourg Aboriginal Council in moving forward our reconciliation plan, both on the ground and in strategy. And this is, of course, an important part of that recognition. And I would very much commend the motion as moved by Councillor Duff and seconded by Councillor Potter. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your commentary. Certainly, I see this as a very important project for our region. What I would like to see and consider with councillors going forward, something to tuck into your minds, I really would like to see us each as divisional councillors have an opportunity to actually raise the Indigenous flag at the customer service centres when this does happen, because I do think that would be a really important sign of our support and a good opportunity for our region to be united in its approach to supporting Indigenous relations in the community. So I really just would like to see us think about, we talk a lot about this. I would like to see us actually walk our talk and be true to our commitments and actually take that next step as well. So I think there's much more that I would like to see us do in this space as a region, particularly as Cherbourg is an important part of the South Burnett region, and I see this as a great step forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. That's an excellent suggestion. I can see all the other councillors nodding, so great suggestion. Mr. CEO, I can see has made extensive notes there, so I'm sure that will happen, and look forward to having every councillor involved in us joining together and raising those Indigenous flags across the South Burnett. Okay, so we'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, on to the next item at 151, which is 14.2, lease of land for development and operation of a fuel outlet at Geelong. And the recommendation is that council, that South Burnett Regional Council award the tender for the lease of part of Lot 1 on RP50789, being Lease A on SP320032, in accordance with the terms and conditions of the tender process, to the preferred tenderer, Amberwell Proprietary Limited, as trustee for the Tobruk Unit Trust, trading as Corbett's Group. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Henson. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Henson, did you want to speak as the mover first? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I supported this when it came to the table in the tender process. The people in the community out there are desperate for a fuel cell in that part of the woods, so I think this is a great result. And passing traffic as well. They're in desperate need of this facility out there, so I support it fully.
Thanks, Councillor Henson. Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I originally voted against this because I wasn't sure, and we couldn't approach, because it was in a tender process, the shop at Geelong to see if what their thoughts were. But since this has been out in the open arena, it's come to my attention that the shop are very supportive of the fuel being at the across the road with the diesel, and they think that that's going to help their business, not hinder it. So I'm actually going to change my vote. So.
Well done, Councillor Duff. Thanks for enlightening council on that. That's great news. So it looks as though it's a win-win. for the shopkeeper and the people of Geelong and the travellers moving through there. I know when I'm going it that way next, I'll be looking forward at some stage in the future to fuelling up my car with diesel on the way through. So, okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And certainly it was Councillor Potter and I were lucky enough on Saturday at the Kingaroy Friendship Markets, and GM Meehan was there actually, and we met the owners of the new store. They're fabulous people. They've got big ideas about really home-baked goods and really warm country hospitality. We have all been invited when the store is open to come out for a meeting and what I hope will be a mean steak sandwich. So I'm really looking forward to getting behind and supporting those new business owners who've come to our region, seen an opportunity with COVID, have come to our region and are looking to stay, which is such a great story for that little community there. I know Geelong has been missing having the general store for a long time, and I wish them nothing but success. I think we're very lucky that they've decided to call the South Burnett home and set themselves up at Geelong. So I'll keep you all in the loop in terms of that lunch date into the future.
Thanks very much, Councillor Shoemaker. I'm sure we'll all be there with bells on. Very much looking forward to going out and seeing the Geelong store open. I know that Councillor Henson has been keen to see that happen, and he's worked hard to also see this fuel outlet happen out in Geelong, which is a very beautiful part of our region. Some beautiful open grazing country out there, some of the nicest you'll see in certain parts. So be lovely to see some good news for Geelong. As you've said, it's an important part of our regional area. Okay. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, on to 14.3, quotations required for the new Proston pool managers at 152. Recommendation is that Council advertises for a new Proston pool manager under a management agreement contract. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Just a little bit of background, councillors. We did receive a report at the Community Standing Committee meeting that the current Proston pool manager has decided not to take up his final option in his contract to operate and manage the Proston swimming pool. So the current manager has chosen not to continue to take up the final option, and as such, council's now looking to advertise for a new pool manager. So, right, those in Councillor Duff, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to. Jim has been fantastic at the Proston pool. He increased the numbers to one point where he had more visitation than Wandai pool. So he put his heart and soul into it. It's disappointing that he's chosen to move on, but just want to acknowledge Jim and the work he's done in the past.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Duff, and I'm sure that our CEO, as would normally do, will send a nice letter of appreciation to Jim once his term with council finishes at the pool. Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 14.4 at 153, reserved for park, Walter Road, Kingaroy, alternative use options. And the recommendation is that council investigate alternative land use options for a reserve for park on Walter Road, Kingaroy, being Lot 1 on RP 852419 by undertaking a land investigation to determine the most appropriate use for the property and undertaking community consultation in accordance with council's community engagement policy to determine the public's use of the park. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 14.5 at 154, use of a reserve of land at Bunya Mountains. And thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So we'll just note Councillor Shoemaker has left the room and intends to stay away until the matter is dealt with. We are now dealing with 14.5, use of a reserve of land at the Bunya Mountains. And this was presented to the Community Standing Committee meeting on the 10th of February, which included a report advising that council representatives have met with the Bunya Mountains Community Association to discuss the establishment of a meeting place and environmental interpretive centre at the Bunya Mountains on a reserve for park and recreation. And the recommendation is that council investigate the future development of Lot 81 on FY 2309 being reserved for park and recreation by liaising across state government and other stakeholders to determine appropriate development of the reserve or identify a more appropriate alternative site. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jones. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. General Manager Jarvis, would you mind bringing Councillor Shoemaker back in for us? Thank you. Okay, welcome back, Councillor Shoemaker. We're now moving on to item 15.1 at 1:55. And the recommendation is that a review of the previous drafts of the Economic Development Strategy be undertaken by the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan Council Subcommittee, and this committee report back to the April Executive and Community Standing Committee meeting. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillors wishing to speak for or against?
Mr. Mayor, there's just a typographical error there. That should be Executive and Finance Corporate Standing Committee.
Oh, thank you, Mr. CEO. Yes, so just there, it should be correctly referred to as the Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing. Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillors, Councillor Shoemaker, of course, spoke passionately about this at the Standing Committee meeting on the 17th of February and put this motion through the Standing Committee. It's now come up as a recommendation to Council General Meeting and clearly an important initiative as part of the economic development of our region. So thank you and well done, Councillor Shoemaker, for bringing this forward. Councillors, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Right, so we'll go on to now 15.2, which is the Regional Development Advisory Committee at 1:56. And the recommendation here that has come out of the Executive and Community Standing Committee meeting, Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting held on 17 February, is that South Burnett Regional Council, in accordance with Section 264 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, establish the South Burnett Regional Economic Development Advisory Committee. South Burnett Regional Council conclude the service of the Tourism Advisory Committee and South Burnett Directions and rescind any associated policy or procedures, and note the service and positive contribution to the region of the members of the Tourism Advisory Committee and South Burnett Directions, and forward a letter of recognition. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Speakers for or against? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note, as per the title, Regional Development Advisory Committee, just the officer's recommendation, just so that we get the minutes right, should be South Burnett Regional Council Regional Development Advisory Committee. If we can remove that economic word, I had missed it before, but certainly I think it's a really important step forward, and I'm really looking forward to being a part of it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shoemaker, and again, thank you for bringing this initiative forward to Council. Clearly an important part of our community engagement process in supporting industry, driving industry, and making sure that we are connecting and engaging with some of the key players in our region to foster the development of regional development across the South Burnett. Look forward to seeing this progress should it be resolved by Council. So very much supportive of it. Did any other councillors want to speak for or against the motion? So we're just going to take the word economic out. It'll talk to establishing the South Burnett Regional Development Advisory Committee. Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. On to the item 15.3 at 1:58. That's the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee. And this was presented at the Executive, Finance and Corporate, at the Standing Committee meeting on the 7th of February. And The recommendation from that is that South Burnett Regional Council, in accordance with Section 264 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, establish the South Burnett Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm very excited about this, but during our standing committee meeting, there was in the minutes, it actually mentioned something about having a second councillor on as the deputy chair. So when do we discuss that?
Okay, thanks, councillor. So this gives us the head of power to go now and establish a committee. So there'll be a terms of reference drawn up and we'll bring them back as soon as possible to a standing committee. And that'll include your membership, frequencies of meetings, all the mechanics. So both of those committees are a two-step process. Give us a head of power to go out and establish, because we will need to have a conversation about who you'll want on them as a membership base. So yeah, that will come back at that point.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. Thanks, Mr. CEO. Right, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 17.1 at 160 is the list of correspondence pending completion of assessment report. And I would hereby move that the list of correspondence pending completion of assessment report be received. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 17.2 at 161, delegated authority reports. Councillors, the reports are there as enclosed, and I would again move that the delegated authority report be received. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, councillors, I'll now, having dealt with the public component of the meeting, I would now move that we close the meeting, go into committee, the confidential section of the meeting at 11:41am. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Meeting now closed for confidential at 11:41am. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, councillors. We're now back into open council at 11:56am. And the next item on the agenda, if I can just move procedural motion that we move 18.5. We escalate that up to be dealt with immediately, and then we'll move through the remainder of the agenda items. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay. So 18.5 is the SB Care proposal at 175. And the recommendation is that we provide a letter of support in principle. Sorry? Oh, it's on the screen. Okay. That South Burnett Regional Council support in principle SB Care's application for grant funding to the Community Infrastructure Partnership Grant. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Second, thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We will note, of course, there that Councillor Shoemaker and Jones did not participate, that they left the room and remained absent for the entire discussions in relation to that matter, and we'll now ask them to rejoin the meeting. Okay, welcome back, Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Jones. We've dealt with item 18.5 in your absence. Also note, Council, that 18.1 was dealt with earlier in the meeting. We'll now move on to 18.2, and the recommendation there is that Council approve the request for a 50% rate reduction on the condition that they enter into a revised payment plan in accordance with Council's hardship policy and maintain compliance with the payment plan for the term of the payment plan and establish a water management plan with Council. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Henshin. Speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 18.3 recommendation is, as presented there, that Council agrees to items 1 to 7 as presented. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Henson. No councillor speaking, so we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 18.4, and the recommendation is that council agree to the items 1 to 9 as presented. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. I will now call the meeting to a close at 11:59 a.m. Thank you, councillors. It's been a very enjoyable and productive meeting. We've got some important initiatives resolved, and look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. Have a great day. Thank you.